For today, we'll be going over biosystematics. According to the usable guide, this is approximately around 5% of the exam. Um, Although it's only 5%, I highly suggest you guys 2 to 3 days before exam. Read up the chapters in Campbell's or go over this PowerPoint, refresh your memory, and hopefully by that you can rate your score by 1, 2, or maybe even 3 points. With that said, this can be the difference between making and not making the semifinal cutoff. First of all, biosystematics is a taxonomy of plants and animals based off their molecular and genetic similarities. And by comparing that, we can construct elaborate diagrams or trees, as they call in this case, showcasing that relationship. Right here, both pictures are the diagram of the tree of life. Obviously, you really don't have to memorize this, just get a general idea of what goes where. Like, for example, domain archaea is more closely related to eukarya than bacteria. For today, we'll be going off this diagram which showcases invertebrates, mostly invertebrates. I'll make a separate video just for vertebrates sometime in the future. So yeah, let's get started. So the first group we'll be looking at is phylum Porifera, which are the sponges. Now going back, this would be right here. I know it says calcarea, but they're all sponges nonetheless. So again, this is your most basal group, and they lack true tissue, but they do have specialized cells. They are suspension feeders, meaning that water is moving throughout their bodies, and it's being food is being filtered out of it. They're hermaphrodites, meaning that they can play the roles of both males and female for reproduction. As for their anatomy, the inside is called the spongocle. The mesohole is the outer layering that separates the inside from the outside. The osculum is this opening right here where water exits. After water is siphoned from these pores, they exit. You have the chanocytes, which are these keyhole-shaped cells right here. Here's like a close-up image. There are flagellum that move food closer to the center mass right here, as you can, I guess what you can call it. And this food will be phagocytosed and will be picked up by amelocytes later on. Which brings us to amelocytes. They actually intake food. They can also create these spiky, hard spicules right here. The next phylum we'll be looking at is Cnidaria. As you can see, it is the second most basal group other than sponges, and they belong to the clade Eumetazoa. What that means is they have true tissue. They have a sessile mobile form, specifically the polyp and medusa. They have a gastrovascular cavity where food enters and leaves out of the same hole. They're diploblastic, which means that um, they have two germlines. They have the endoderm and ectoderm. They have nematocytes. These are cells that contain a nematocyst that can sting and possibly immobilize prey. They are broken off into 4 major clades. We have the hydrozoans, the most notable of which being the hydra, which are usually found as polyps, and they reproduce asexually by budding. You have your scyphozoans. These are your common jellyfish, and they're mostly found in their medusa forms. You have cubozoans. These are again mostly medusas, and they're named after their cube-like medusa structure. And the most notable of which being the sea wasp, which is found off the coast of Australia, that can deliver a deadly toxin. And last but not least are the anthozoans. These are exclusively found as polyps, and they can secrete a hard calcium carbonate shell, which becomes coral and are responsible for building up our coral reefs. As we go on, these organisms increase in complexity. The next phylum we have is the Lophotrochozoans, as you can see right here. Lophotrochozoans, they're named after a structure that can be found on some but not all of their species. You have which is called a lopophore, which is this right here. Um, you can see these tentacles. They can siphon water into their mouth. Um, First, we have your flatworms. These are platyhelminths. They are acoelomates, meaning that they don't have a coelom. Remember that they are still tryptoblastic. All of them are tryptoblastic, meaning they have a endo, meso, and ectoderm. They have a flat body. This allows for quick diffusion between cells and with the outside as well. You have flame cells. These are cells specifically um, made for excretion of waste. Some flatworms are parasitic, flukes and tapeworms being the most notable. Another common Lophotrochozoan I want to mention is rotifers. These have an alimentary canal, meaning a tube connecting the mouth and the anus. They have a pseudocoelom. This is a coelom that rises between the meso and the endoderm. And what surprises scientists is many of them produce asexually by parthenogenesis, which is reproduction in the absence of a male. And because of that, you would expect them to accumulate some um, harmful fixed gene, but that is not the case. Next, you have your mollusks. These are coelomates. They have a foot, which is down here. They have a vessel mass, which contains all their organs. They have the mantle, which is responsible for secreting a shell, a hard shell. And they have a radula, which is kind of like sharp hooks or teeth that pick up food. Gastropod is a type of mollusk, specifically your snails and slugs. Um, One key feature of their growth is torsion. Torsion is the twist, a 180 twist of the posterior end, so their anus ends up above their head actually. Another common mollusk are cephalopods. These are your marine predators, your squids, octopus, and cuttlefish. They're the only mollusks with a closed circulatory system, and they have very complex sensory systems, and they're able to learn. The last Lophotrochozoan we'll talk about are your annelids. These are your segmented worms. Keyword segmented. They are your coelomates, um, and they're divided into polychaetes and oligochaetes. Um, Poly means many, shades means these hairs, and these hairs they have a specific name. It's parapodia, and for polychaetes they're found on each segment of the worm, and they assist in motion. Oligochaetes, these are your earthworms and leeches. Oligo means few, so not surprisingly, you don't find much hair on earthworms or leeches. So quick reminder, everything that I talked to up until now, uh, from flatworms all the way to annelids, these are all part of the Lophotrochozoa phylum. Next, we have ecdysozoa. These are grouped together by molecular evidence, mainly by molecular evidence. They're pseudocoelomates. They have a cuticle that most of them have a cuticle that they will end up molting. This process is called ecdysis, hence the name. You have your nematodes, which are your roundworms. They live in aquatic environments. They have an alimentary canal. They lack a circulatory system, and they have longitudinal muscles. Earthworms have a circular muscle, so they will move by extending and retracting, extending and retracting. Um, Nematodes, on the other hand, will move in a whip-like motion, kind of like that of a transverse wave. Oops. A notable nematode is C. elegans. This is a model organism for research. And of course, nematodes are also famous for their parasites, their pinworms and hookworms. Um, Also, nematodes can cause a disease called Chinchilla spiralis. This is usually acquired by eating raw meat or undercooked meat. So the most famous group Ecdysozoa is known for are arthropods. These actually make up the majority of all known species. They are segmented, although some in different ways. They have a hard exoskeleton and they have jointed appendages. Um, as they evolve, their body plan changed not due to the acquisition of new Hox genes, but rather the regulation of their existing ones. And each appendage has a specific function. For example, you have those that help with movement. There are feeding appendages, there are appendages for reproduction, etc. And these all have open circulatory systems. We'll be taking a look at the four subphylums of arthropods. Your first subphylum is your chelicerates. These are named after an appendage called chelicera, which they use to feed. Their body is divided into a cephalothorax, cephalohead, and thorax, and an abdomen. The most early ones were called euryptids, and these are your water scorpions that can grow up to 3 meters in length. Now the current ones that live in the sea. Oh, another side note: a lot of these arthropods' ancestors did emerge from water. So the marine ones that are still around today are your sea spiders and horseshoe crabs. For those of y'all that are not familiar with what a sea spider looks like, they're kind of like a daddy long leg, but much bigger. You also have your arachnids. These are your scorpions, spider, ticks, and mites. Their chelicerae can deliver poison to their prey, and they have something called a booked lung, which is shown right here. And it has a very extensive surface area that is useful for diffusion of gas. So next we have your myriapods. There isn't much to be said, but they're your centipedes and millipedes. They're terrestrial, and millipedes they usually feed on decaying matter, while centipedes are carnivorous and poisonous. And probably the most famous arthropod are your insects. They live in both freshwater as well as terrestrial environments. They have wings, and this is a key feature that contributes to the success of insects. Um, Wings are an extension of the cuticle, so it isn't considered a true appendage. They have something called Malpighian tubules, and these are used to excrete waste that is filtered from the hemolymph. Hemolymphs are kind of like blood, but since insects have an open circulatory system, we can't necessarily call that substance blood. Um, and they're divided by the process they go through, incomplete or complete metamorphosis. Before going any further, I just want to take a look at the diversity of insects. Um, let's go over the ones that go through complete metamorphosis first, meaning that their larval and adult stage look completely different. You have your Cleoptera, these are your beetles. They have two pairs of wings, one is thick and hard, while the other one is membranous. You have your Diptera, these wings, they have two pairs of wings actually. One pair is for flying, while the other one is for balance. And these are your flies and mosquitoes. Next is your Hymenoptera. These are highly social insects, and these are your ants, bees, and wasps. Next is your Lepidoptera. These are your butterflies and moths. They are characterized with a long proboscis, usually for sucking on nectar. Next are the ones that go through incomplete metamorphosis. You have Hemiptera. These are your stink bugs and assassin bugs. And Orthoptera, these are your grasshoppers and crickets, and they're characterized with long legs made for jumping. Last but not least, these are your crustaceans. These are the arthropods that still remain in the water, in both fresh and in marine environments. And another thing is that appendages can be found on their abdomen. Usually for other arthropods, their appendages are found under thorax or cephalothorax. And appendages can be regenerated, usually following a molt. They're divided into your isopods, decapods, and copepods. Isopods are your largest crustacean group. These usually inhabit deep sea areas, but there are some terrestrial ones as well, an example of which being the pillbug. Next is your decapods. These are your crawfish, lobsters, crabs, and shrimp. They have a calcium carbonate shell. Next are copepods. These are very small and they tend to feed on algae. These are your krill and they're a staple food source for whales. The last phylum I would like to talk about are your echinoderms. These are your sea stars, sea urchins, sand dollars. They are closely related to chordates because they are both threadosomes. Keep in mind, everything up till now were protozoans. They have a water vascular system that are used for movement. Although they might look like they have radial symmetry, um, the organs on the inside are actually not evenly distributed. And another thing is that their larvae actually exhibit bilateral symmetry. So I'm just going to do a very quick recap of everything we learned today. So sponges, Porifera, basal group, they lack true tissue. Cnidaria, they have true tissue and they're diploblastic. Lophotrochozoans, they're named after the lophophore, the tryptoblastic, one of which is the platyhelminths, flatworms, the coelomates. Rotifers, they're pseudocoelomates. Mollusks, they're coelomates. Cephalopods are the only mollusks that have a closed circulatory system. Annelids are segmented worms, they are coelomates. And everything from Lophotrochozoans and beyond are all tryptoplastic because in order to have a coelom or pseudocoelom, you have to have a mesoderm. Ecdysozoa, you have your nematodes, these are pseudocoelomates, and your arthropods, which are coelomates. Skip all these. And last but not least, you have your echinoderms, and these are therisomes, while everything else before are protozomes. And even though they might look radial, they're actually not because organs are not distributed equally, and the larva is actually bilateral.